What if I told you a game launched this week and barely 50 people showed up? Let me say that again. 50 people showed up. Relooted was supposed to be bold, political, cultural, different. Instead, it's become one of the quietest flops of the year. Low player counts, awkward reviews, and a concept that many players are calling just plain stupid. Tonight, we're breaking down what happened, from development hype to launch disaster, and why a game about reclaiming stolen artifacts may have sabotaged itself before it even released. Before we dig into the drama, let's explain what Relooted actually is. Relooted is a side-scrolling African futurist heist game developed and published by South Africa's Nyamakop. You plan stealthy missions, recruit a diverse crew, and execute parkour-style break-ins, not for cash, but to reclaim real African artifacts from Western museums. Relooted was pitched as an African futurist heist game. You recruit a crew, you plan break-ins, you infiltrate Western museums, and instead of stealing for money, you steal back African artifacts. On paper, it sounds bold, unique, you have to give it that, and timely. But here's the thing, bold doesn't automatically mean good. The gameplay was described as a side-scrolling stealth puzzle experience. You scout layouts, you dodge guards, parkour your way out, and that's the pitch. But very quickly after previews went live, a lot of players started asking the same question. Okay, but is it actually fun? And because once you strip away the cultural framing, what you're left with is a fairly basic 2D stealth puzzle game, a genre that lives and dies by tight controls, satisfying mechanics, and smart level design. And according to early players, Relooted didn't deliver. Relooted had festival appearances. It showed up at indie showcases. Journalists praised its concept, of course. It stood out visually to some extent. And that's important because of the early buzz was about what it represented. It was positioned as this meaningful, corrective, and culturally powerful game, but here's where things started to get shaky. A significant portion of online gamers weren't reacting to it as innovative. Whoa, what a surprise. They were reacting to it as preachy. On forums and comment sections, you could already see skepticism building. That's a quote. So it's a game about committing crimes, but we're supposed to cheer? This feels like activism disguised as gameplay. Is this going to be fun or just a message? Now, whether you agree with those takes or not, the important part is that this narrative was forming before launch. And in today's market, perception spreads fast. Before the game even came out, the Steam discussions were tense. Some users claimed critical threads were being removed, others accused the devs of shutting down debate, which is always great for promoting your game. There were arguments about censorship, another great thing. Arguments about politics in games. Oh yeah, we need more politics in games. Arguments about whether the premise was glorifying theft. And instead of building curiosity, the conversation turned combative. That's never a good sign for an indie launch. Instead of, wow, this looks cool, the tone online shifted to, this is going to be cringe, this is going to bomb, who's this even for? By the time launch day arrived, the game wasn't entering neutral territory. It was walking into skepticism. And then release day hits, and the numbers come in. Peak concurrent players on Steam, roughly around 50 to 60. For context, even modest indie games usually hit a few hundred on day one. Relooted didn't just underperform, it barely registered. No one wanted to play it. No one heard about it. Streams? No one played it. Twitch category? Practically empty. YouTube coverage? Minimal or only in negative light. Steam reviews? Extremely low volume. And here's the worst part. There wasn't even outrage. It wasn't hated loudly. It was ignored. And in modern gaming, being ignored is worse than being controversial. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Was the concept itself flawed? A lot of players think so. Here's why. Framing the game around breaking into museums to reclaim artifacts instantly turned into political lightning rod. For some players, that's compelling for whatever reason. For many others, it felt like being lectured. Gaming audiences are broad, and while social commentary absolutely has place in games, if players feel like they're being morally positioned instead of entertained, they check out. And many did. If a game is going to take a bold thematic stance, the mechanics need to be airtight. But early feedback mentioned clunky movement, repetitive level design, simplistic stealth systems, lack of depth. If the gameplay loop isn't addictive, the concept won't save it. Players don't stick around for a message if the controls feel off. Trailers felt cinematic, the final product more modest. The gap between expectation and reality hurts indie games hard. When the first wave of players doesn't feel impressed, word of mouth dies instantly. There's a modern belief in marketing that controversy drives engagement. Sometimes it does. It sort of works with High Guard. But controversy only works if there's underlying demand. If the audience isn't already excited, controversy just narrows your pool even further. Instead of attracting curiosity, Relooted premise may have filtered out large segments of players before they even touched it. Right now, the dominant online narrative isn't complicated, it's blunt. People are calling it virtue signaling, an idea first, game second, a political statement disguised as a stealth game, one of the most predictable flops of the year. And again, these are community sentiments, not official verdicts, but perception becomes reality in launch week. And the perception is that Relooted focused more on what it wanted to say than how fun it wanted to be. Fair or not, that's the conversation. And here's the uncomfortable question. If Relooted had the exact same mechanics, but removed the heavy political framing, would it have performed better? Maybe. Or maybe the real issue is simpler, it just wasn't strong enough mechanically to survive a crowded market. Indie stealth games live or die by polish. And in a year packed with polished indies, Relooted didn't stand out where it mattered most, gameplay. Relooted didn't explode in scandal, it didn't spark massive backlash, it simply didn't matter. Low players, low engagement, minimal conversation outside debate, and that may be the most brutal outcome of all, because in the end, regardless of intentions, regardless of message, regardless of ambition, players vote with time, and they didn't show up. So what do you think? Was Relooted doomed by its concept, or did it just fail to deliver where it counted? Drop your thoughts below, and if you want more breakdowns or on gaming biggest flops, controversies, and industry drama, hit subscribe.